Then.
Off we go. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Sovereign Soul Show, you divine lions and lionesses. We stand, as you know, over here for love, levity, and liberty. And the Bling Buddha is our mascot. He fires red pills from his 9mm with the Punisher's tattoo over his left breast, symbolizing save the children. I mentioned divine lions and lionesses because we literally have a warrior of light, the lioness, the lovely Michelle Fielding, back here on the program. And if you're watching this on Michelle's Locals, fantastic on Rumble. So make sure you give her a like, give her a follow, and share this if you can as one of Michelle's subscribers, and definitely as one of our amazing audience on the Sovereign Soul Show. Michelle, welcome from the UK, hanging out there
Hi.
in Albion. Lovely shirt too.
Yeah, the meditating dog. Can you
That's
see it?
awesome. The flower of life just right behind. That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
outstanding. That's so cool. That's so cool. So tell everybody, if they hadn't watched our last program, which was 2 months ago, it was a roundtable with yourself, myself, AJ, and Derek. Look at that, right? Three masculine divine men, and it takes one divine feminine. That's the way it is in the Aquarian age, folks. You know, whole like Reiki master. But share everybody a little bit about your incredible background as a spiritual coach and what you do now with some of the amazing information you bring forward for humanity for the good.
So, for those that haven't heard my story before, my background is similar to you, actually, Brad, in the sense that I was a Reiki master and I was teaching people how to meditate and how to meet their angels and things like that. And then when we had the freaky flu begin, I kind of had to rethink about what I was going to do, whether I was going to go onto YouTube and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And in my normal I normally would channel masters and things like that. And as I started to channel around the time of the freaky flu, I started to find that I was getting information about President Trump and military information, and I didn't really understand why I was getting that information. But bit by bit, it's kind of unfolded over the past 3 years into what looks like something to do with the military plan at the very highest level.
Hmm.
So, that's like the Q team, 17th letter, that sort of thing. It seems like I'm getting information at that level that's coming in chunks that when you put it all together over the 3 years is now creating a coherent storyline, which we are now starting to see unravel. So in the beginning, it didn't look like that. And I was putting information out that people couldn't believe, I suppose would be the right term. And it was a little while till we started to see the evidence of what I was getting sort of catching up with itself. So sometimes when I'm putting out information, it's a little bit ahead of where we are. And I don't always know if that's 6 months or 2 years or whatever. It's not always easy to know the time scales. But I just give information as and when I'm prompted to give it. And it normally starts in visions. And I have notebooks everywhere. So when I'm kind of like washing up or something, I get a vision
Right.
and I don't know exactly what they want from me yet, but I write down the vision and draw a picture. And then when I come and sit down with them whenever and ask them, what is it you're trying to tell me? They then fill in the story like around the vision.
So you've had some incredible visions. What we're going to be covering here roughly the next 50 to 60 minutes is quite awesome. You know, we have EBS hot test, what that meant prior to when everybody was worried about EBS is going to go down, we're going to lose everything. And fortunately, we live streamed right through that mess, but always good to be prepared. Vin Salomon, the Arctic Vision, Project 25, True Social Network, Israel, Starlink, and before we jump to all of this, because I've written it down so you don't have to try to remember, I'll have to bring it out there to you, is in our last show, in that roundtable, the four of us, Michelle, what you had covered off and shared was a channeling about Space Force and Space Force sharing that there are 6 commanders in chief around the world, right? And I have always, I've only said this out loud. Nobody's had me sign NDAs and whispered in my ear, but I've always looked at a man who I have great respect for, Lieutenant Colonel Ricardo Bosi, the leader of Australia One Party. Whenever we've done a show, almost every time I said, I recognize you as the commander in chief in Australia. So that was really telling what you had shared in that channeling 2 months ago. It's on all of our channels, so we don't have to rehash that as the new information's come forward. We also touched on military tribunals. And as a setup for our conversations, we were talking in the pre-chat, Dr. Jan Halper Hayes had just shared on a recent news broadcast on another show that right now in the Mediterranean and the Caribbean, military tribunals are happening. Right now as well, she said the US Navy is deployed in large scope around Australia and Japan. Okay, what are the signals here? And then also, I saw a video serendipitously right after I watched that from Dr. Jan, that there is a man in New York where snow is coming down, and he didn't say the date. By the way, if you're ever recording videos, folks, and you see a UFO, and you're like, say the date and the time. It really helps when you share it so we don't know it's like something from 2021 or it's from a video game like The Ghost of Kiev, FYI. So he had said that, and the video is pretty telling. Having been a guy who's lived in New York City for work when I was doing Rim Blackberry on West 57th and Broadway and Wall Street and all the law firms and verticals there, 42nd Street, dozens of cop cars and unmarked showing up. Looking down to the bridge, dozens, if not hundreds, of cop cars everywhere. And the video went on for about 4 or 5 minutes. I shared it to our Telegram recently. So it looks like there's a worldwide wrap-up underway. Just 5 days ago, you mentioned the entire Portuguese government was arrested. And we've heard as well that so far there's been roughly 100 to 250 doctors, nurses, hospital administrators who have received their ultimate Nuremberg by bullet for crimes against humanity. And I believe that's, obviously going to get a lot larger for anybody who willingly is complicit in crimes against humanity. So take us to where we are now with, why don't we just start on military tribunals in the Arctic vision? I think this is kind of a nice way as we walk into the next hour or so with the audience. What have you gotten on Arctic vision and military tribunals of late?
Okay. So when I hear about all the aeroplanes that are moving around, sometimes Derek Johnson talks about it, and then we've got, is it Monkey Works? He does maps of planes moving everywhere.
Right.
And people talk about Gitmo as being sort of the main hub for everything to do with people being arrested, especially the high profile people. But what I've always been sort of feeling is that it isn't all going on in Gitmo. That might actually be a distraction. And I think that the planes that are moving around everywhere and all the different destinations they're going to, I think they're picking up high profile people that are being arrested, and then they're being taken to military bases. And that's why you're seeing all that activity everywhere, because I think it's going on all over the place. I don't think it's just planes are coming and going to Gitmo. I think they're picking up people and taking them to different military locations. That I haven't channeled that yet, but that's something that I've had on my pad for a little while to look into.
Okay.
In terms of the Arctic, that goes back to the commander-in-chief's type thing that you were talking about with the 6 regions. I recently put out a video saying that Mohammed bin Salman is going to be like the king of one side of the world, and Trump is going to be like the queen move of the other side of the world. And when you put them both together, you're going to create a checkmate. So they're like the 2 top commanders in chief, if you like, Salman and Trump. And then below that, you're going to have 4 other regions. which makes your 6 commanders in chief. So they've said that to me for quite some time. And what they're saying is that the 2 tops of that hierarchy is Salman for the Middle East and Trump for the West. And it was interesting because when they started giving me that channeling, it was before the Israel war had begun. And I had this vision of bin Salman in the Arctic with a team that looked like military, and it looked like leaders from the Middle East. And what they had been discussing was the quantum financial system. And this was all just before Israel started.
Wow.
And they had come to an agreement. They had agreed on how the finances were going to go forward. So before the Israel war, I had talked about something called the quantum virtual vault. And the quantum virtual vault is where everybody around the world has been reflecting what assets they have in their country into this virtual vault, and it's being turned into digital currency. So what that means is, for example, the Middle East has got, as we know, oil, for instance, as an example. And in order for this worldwide distribution of wealth, instead of them having to give up anything, i.e., having to give up any gold or give up any oil or diamonds or whatever it is, whatever asset they may have, instead of having to give it up and give it to somebody to be divided out, what they've all been doing is they've been signing in as countries to the quantum virtual vault saying, I've got 10 barrels of oil and it's worth £100 or $100. And I'm prepared to sign that value into the quantum virtual vault.
Right.
So the Middle East will put in their $100, and then England will put in their £10, and then whoever else will put in their amount. And it all gets reflected into the quantum vault and then turned into digital currency. And then that gets redistributed fairly around the world. But the actual asset of each country remains theirs. But what it means is that the digital currency that's being redistributed has a value. It's backed by something. So this meeting in the Arctic was the Middle Eastern countries all agreeing to be part of it. It was like the final signing in. And the reason that we were waiting on them is because of their culture. Their culture is quite autocratic. And so they needed somebody like bin Salman, who's a bit more liberal, if that's the right word, in his leadership, to explain to these countries, these regions, this is what we need from you so that we can get this worldwide peace plan going and we can get this quantum virtual vault operational. And so what I had seen was them agreeing to that. So then I was a little bit taken aback when I saw the Israel thing just suddenly blow, like really fast, it almost seemed like from nowhere. Yes. And so I asked the
October 23rd, there was nothing. And the first week of October, all of the news was all about Ukraine, Russia, and we had finally it leaking out that Ukrainian soldiers are surrendering to Russians. And, we've got this collateralization of assets, which is what you were alluding to, the Arctic vision, which is, for anybody who's done real estate, I used to own real estate investment companies. So, you put up your collateral just like anybody getting a mortgage. And this is what Michelle was sharing. They say, I've got the oil, I've got gold, I've got X amount of land. Here's the collateralization that we as this country are putting up, signing off the documentation to that. And now you can create an asset-backed digital currency for us in this quantum vault, so to speak. Yeah. So yes, and then all of a sudden, Israel.
Yeah, in order to have this worldwide peace plan, as I've been speaking about for some years now, the countries and regions all have to sign in to the Starlink, which is now Star Shield or Space Operations Command. And they have to agree to certain precepts, which essentially mean that they will have peace not only with other countries, but they will have peace with their citizens. So they have to sign into these agreements to become part of Space Force, which is the name that the US use, but there is a counterpart for Space Force all around the world in each region. So we've been seeing them signing in, and if you follow me on locals, you'll see me saying Japan signed in and this person signed in, the UK signed in. So everyone's starting to do that. Now, the point of Israel and probably the Ukraine or some of it is to do with the fact that war in the future, we're trying to stop it. And we're trying to put everyone into this peace plan that I've just been talking about. And so that on the ground, we don't need that military munitions anymore. We don't need those weapons. We don't need weapons of mass destruction. We don't need bombs and all these things, because everything will be coordinated from space. So one of the reasons they're going into Israel is to get rid of those stocks of ammunition, plans on how to make bombs or whatever, dark documents, and maybe also to assess what asset they've got, because again, that has to be reflected into the quantum vault. So this military peace plan has got three layers, really. It's got the first layer where obviously people have to agree that they want to be part of it, and they wouldn't want to be part, they wouldn't not want to be part of it, because if you're not in it, you're not going to have military protection, you're not going to have the internet, you're not going to have the banking. So you're going to be on the outside of the rest of the world. So there's no reason for people not to want to be part of it. Then you have to get all your assets reflected into the vault. And then you have to have all your the old war system gone. So the old war system is bombs, tanks, nuclear. You know, we have to get rid of all of that so that everybody starts on a level playing field. And that's how it's been explained to me. So I don't know, Brad, what your thoughts are on that.
I think it's beautiful. I mean, you know, if you red team the conversation, red team goes, well, what's so bad about this? And the red team would say, well, if you got all the countries of the world getting rid of their munitions and signing into a peace accord, which says not only do we have to have peace amongst each other, we have to make sure that our citizens, the sovereign men, women, and children, are taken care of and they're provided for. You know, what happens if this goes awry? So, you know, all-seeing eye organization in space. You know, people are getting the feeling of Terminator, you know, coming after you here. Okay, but we're also looking at it from a biblical sense that it is written that we are literally about to start the Jubilee. And they never taught you and I that in Roman Catholic school growing up, did they, Michelle? But yet it's written there about the Jubilee, which is, you know, there is no more war amongst each other. There is a beautiful peace, love, and harmony. In order for that peace, love, and harmony to continue forward, we have an agreement, just like you would have the 10 commandments, so to speak, of, you know, we're not going to trespass upon each other. We're going to treat each other with respect and love and compassion, and empathy, and be of integrity. And by moving forward in a virtuous and honorable system, then here it is. We have the fruits to enjoy of all of this, right? Enjoy the world, enjoy your life, which also includes educating yourself on something that may be of interest to you rather than being told what you need to be educated on, which also includes if you want to take the path of an artist, musician, poet, painter, engineer, those are all afforded for you as well. Plus, what's also part of that is the natural wellness of granted by God of what we all have, and then you no longer have, which Russia did a great job, which we've just seen them. They've outlawed GMO, and if you are creating any GMO foods, you are a domestic terrorist, because genetically modifying those foods then, you know, is an act of terrorism, a crime against humanity and children, not for the good of the life. So it was really interesting. So I feel that if this is what it looks like, which does feel right to me, then this is beautiful. Beautiful. We're kind of at that last stage, getting away those cronies that are fighting for their last bit of control.
Well, the thing is as well that it sounds a bit scary if people are hearing it for the first time because it feels like a top-down authority. What people have to kind of get used to thinking is that the authority is it's about keeping the leaders in line. So if any of the leaders, the commanders in chief, the 6 regions, were to step out of the protocols or the peace treaty, which is peace to citizens and peace to other countries, if any leaders, so let's imagine, just for an example, that everyone signed in, and then let's say that the British government decide they want to start stepping outside of the rules. The rest of the pieces of the cake could lock them out, of banking, could lock them out of communications, could lock them out of this protection, which would now be the military protection, which would now be run from here and not on the ground. So none of the leaders are going to want to step out of the protocols of peace, because then they won't be able to be part of the whole thing. And the other amazing thing about this new system is that at the level of the people, we vote for what we want. So it's centralized up here in one way to keep the leaders under control. But in terms of day-to-day living, it will be decentralized. So you and me, with our quantum phones, the government layers will be weeded out. They're going to go. The banking will be weeded out. That's going to go. And you and I, in our local communities, will vote for policy that we want in our local area through these quantum devolved systems. So you've got 2 things going on. You've got the higher up level, which is running all the military, the banking, communications. And then on the ground, the policy is being decided by us. And all the layers in the middle that have been corrupt will be going. Yeah. So that means that all your unelected NGOs who have been supported by governments in the past, the government is the ones that allow them to come in, give them the funding and that sort of thing. If those government structures are collapsing, who's going to give the NGOs their funding or their permissions to be there? But they're not going to be needed, because we're going to be voting in our local community for what we want in our local area. We don't need these big NGOs. Yep. So the whole plan, even though it sounds kind of fanciful at first, it is actually starting to take shape. And so this new setup where people are going to decide on policy instead of voting for presidents and things like that, I've been calling it the new setup. About 2 weeks ago, I couldn't believe it when President Trump announced this thing called Project 25. And if you look at it, it's a transition program from where government is currently to where they want to take it. It's a project. It's asking people to come in and register who want to be involved in training or personnel or talking about how things could be in a new setup. So what I've been talking about for 2 years about there's going to be a new way to do everything in America, and I couldn't actually see any evidence of it yet. Project 25 is it. It's the transition. It's the process of getting people involved. So it's very exciting, Brad.
It really is. It's an exciting time to be alive, because now we're seeing these fruits actually be dropped in front of us. You know, we have, as you mentioned, the banking system going away. You know, just on November 13th, Monday, New York Times is putting out the article that of bank evictions. It's almost like they're trying to normalize, New York Times, shutting down people's accounts without any reason. And it literally, I don't know if you saw that article, bank evictions becoming the norm. New York Times. And literally, November 13th, they want to look this up. And they're normalizing the fact that customers are getting deleted. Bank of America, JP Morgan Chase, you name it, all the big ones as well, are just being like, oh, we closed your account. Why? Well, it's a bank eviction. You know, we'll send, did you get our letter in the mail? No. Well, we closed it yesterday. Wait 30 days for the mails. It's crazy, right? But again, you're seeing no longer are you going to require that intermediary.
Yeah.
Like you have to go to a bank and wait 5 to 7 days. So, you know, I could send you $5, right? Or the equivalent of $5 or £5 or whatever it's going to eventually be. I believe it'll be on an XRP ledger for sure. You know, I believe that's seventh dimensional Pleiadian architecture and technology. When I've looked into it, I keep getting that still today, a year and a half later. Awesome. Maybe it could change, right? I'm open to things. I'm also open to being wrong too. Only God knows. I also like to bring a point up before we get to the Project 25, because people have to make the distinction between government and governance, right? And when you look at wonderful cultures which thrive, they blossom. When you have a form of governance, which is small government, if you will, but we can't use the term government anymore. When you drop the T on the word government, what do you get? Govern men, govern mankind. And government, as I've said many times for over a year on the show, is the Latin derivative of governus mentis, which translates then back to English as to control minds. So no longer are we here to control minds, it's governance. You need a little form of policy and structure and protocol, as Michelle has mentioned. And so when we look at the Canadian Freedom Convoy as an example, Norman Traversy has been on here many times, you know, a true nationally recognized hero is a firefighter for bravery in 2003, and one of the men, the amazing men and women behind to help the Freedom Convoy. So he kind of oversaw the reception of the Canadian Freedom Convoy. Michelle, the thing about your viewers, if they haven't heard this, as my audience, I just had Norman on again last week with some stuff that's going on in Canada right now. And he said, listen, it was amazing. All these people, we never knew each other. All of a sudden, we had this woman who was like the marshal, who, you know, would organize everything at Parliament Hill. You got 10 minutes to speak. If you weren't on her checklist and on her checkboard, you weren't speaking. If you were a band, you had to be registered by her. We just recognized her as like the general for around Ottawa during the Freedom Convoy. Remember, it was February 2022, everybody. And the temperatures dropped to minus 40. And then the Ottawa police and the RCMP cut off the fuel supplies for trucks to keep men, women, and children warm at night. And the Freedom Convoy was out sweeping streets. They had 5-star chefs volunteering their time, feeding tens of thousands of people of free food, which was brought in and donated. And why I'm exemplifying and extrapolating on this story is because when you see humanity that wants to come together for a common good, that altruistic nature we all have in our hearts as we're born in children, if it hasn't been corrupted, it's still there. And guess what? There's far more of us, of the light, who are just waiting and go, how do you need me? How can I serve? Well, what's your strength? Cool, and get after it. So this is where we are with Project 25, as well as what you have shared. This is what I get as well, Michelle, where you're talking about, we have these protocols in place for those who are the representatives of governance to just oversee and ensure these things are maintained and our growth happens from an economical standpoint, from an evolutionary standpoint, while at the same time we have safety and security and peace.
It's true, because the word governance is the only word that ever gets channeled to me about how it's going to look in the future. I never hear the word government being in the future tense. I only hear that being wiped out. And what they always explain to me is that, again, us, when we all work together, we know what's best for our local communities. And so we don't need all these layers and layers of government like we've had before. We can decide amongst ourselves what would work best in our local regions. And so Project 25, I haven't found a lot of information on it yet, but the information that I've seen so far It seems to be inviting people from all walks of life. You know, you don't have to be an elite person with millions in the bank. You can be anybody with any sort of sets of skills, and you can apply right now under Project 25 to be under certain aspects of it. And so far they've called it policy for going forward in the future, personnel, and training.
Mm.
They're actually calling on people right now to sign up and offer what they are good at, what they're interested in. So
Yeah.
this is how I see things going forward in the future, that everyday people will be encouraged to offer what they are able to do in terms of making it better for the whole.
I also received information a year ago that what we're going to see is our spiritual signature. Again, Carillion photography, 1966. So, boy, we're coming up on nearly 60 years of an anniversary of the first known in the century of late of an ability to photograph your auric field. So
Mm.
what I was shared when we move into this next phase of evolution for our species of ascension, now everybody is going to be looked at from their spiritual field, their aura. Have you received any information on that? And then we'll move into the Truth Social Network and Starlink stuff. Because to me, that is, I'm sorry, one more thing. To me, where that comes from is, you know, have a driver's license or have a passport to go between this country and that country and whatnot. You know, when you look at sovereignty, you know, and we go back to, and I'm not talking about today how things are where there may be some very nasty people who come into certain countries that want to do stuff. I'm looking at it when, okay, we got peace, love, and harmony. No
Mm.
need to be a passport. No need to say that, well, Michelle's in the UK and she wears this flag and Brad's in Canada with the maple leaf over
Yeah.
there. Like, no more of that. Because
Mm.
it's like, here's the world. Here are the beautiful different cultures in the world. Here are the beautiful, slightly varied belief systems of people in the world. You know, a Mohawk tribe may say, this is great spirit. You know, Brad may say, this is the God, great omnipresence of divinity. Michelle may say, source. Well, to us, it's all eventually the same thing. The all-loving mother and father creator, right? Pachamama, as I spent time in Peru. So have you received anything to that? Because I believe that passports, driver's license, they're all gone. That is all part of the enslavement system the cabal set up.
So for many years, I've always been sort of shouting that the world wasn't created with postcodes. It wasn't meant to be divided up, and people have to stay within regions. And then when this channeling has been coming down to me, what they've been explaining is that we're going to have a sort of like a quantum ID, which will mean that, again, linked all in with this cyber system, we should be able to, in theory, just move around freely. Because if we are a criminal, that would be picked up on the system immediately, just because of the way it's programmed, I suppose. But in
Yeah.
terms of going into what you're talking about, the auric field, I think that the future of these quantum IDs is somehow through quantum entanglement. So quantum entanglement is where maybe our vibration or our DNA is somehow read by a computer system. It knows it's us. And so wherever we are in the world, it knows it's us. Now, whether we're at that stage yet in terms of having that computer system built, I don't know. But I definitely think that it's layers of our being that will be used to operate these systems in these passwords, if you like, in the future. So that could be, for instance, the vibration from your heart. It could be your auric field. It could be your chakra vibrations. It could be your whole entity. When you put it all together, the heart, the chakras, and the aura, it could create a unique ID. Now, I don't know where we are with creating something like that at the moment, because I'm not I'm not a tech person in that sense, but it would make sense to me that the future of computing should be able to, at some level, know who we are on all those unique levels. And so the old system of passporting, like you said, would be then, obsolete because they would just recognize us by our vibration.
So it's interesting as you saying that, and thank you for sharing, because I get this very heavy hit when you started mentioning quantum ID and how things can be. And it was, and I keep checking into it, and I'm like, still getting the hit, but it's lightening off. Like, we don't want all this to come out. And we're right on target, on target. And so I was asking Archangel Michael and bringing in Yeshua, going, is this good, this hit that's coming in or not? And I'm not getting an answer. So they would usually tell me that it's good or not, but at least it's not nefarious what I was getting. So let me just put it that way. But it was literally like this heavy pressure, left-hand side of my head, going down the left-hand side of the body. So we're talking about quantum ID and how things can be. And we also know that even on the platform that we're using, they're both sides are watching, in every
So
way.
it's not about, it's always, everything is always about not the technology, it's about who's in control of it. And so one of the big hurdles, I suppose, with all of this going forward is the security of how they're going to manage all these systems. So if someone's can read your aura, and they can read your heartbeat, and they can read your chakras, how do you secure all of that into one ID? That's the big problem. So it's not impossible to get to that point, but it's just, I don't think we're there yet. I don't think we're at that point yet. So we're going to see different types of ID in the meantime until the technology catches up with our what we're saying right now. Because until they can find a way to make it safe in the sense that it can't be hacked by nefarious people, then we're still in an on a road of evolution in terms of technology and being able to move around as freely as we would like. Because as I was saying, it's like with all the finances and with all of these things we're talking about, there's the peace programs and all these things. It's not about the technology, it's about who's in control of it. So they have to be, this is why it's taking so long. Because in theory, we could set this system up now. But if someone could take over the cyber systems and run them in a nefarious way, then we'd be no further forward. So it's about getting everything completely clean and crystal so that that can't happen, so that when we hand the systems over, they are all running for the good of humanity.
Wow. And when people step out of it and look at, our soul is the sound of unlimited love. This isn't the first rodeo, and you don't really have to wait because it's already been figured out for us. It's now the implementation phases. So it's almost like, here's an ability for your soul to be free, be sovereign, but in a slightly physical form in your carbon crystalline based body during this ascension process, which everybody's going through. And depending on where you are, you've already nailed ascension, you're there, and you wait for other people to catch up, right? And to make sure that you have that status quo, so to speak, that baseline for the entire world. And then it also ensures none of this can ever happen again, right? You can't have a nefarious input from outside entity even, to come in and change things. I like that.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. Well, thank you for sharing that, the spiritual signature. All right. This is a nice segue into True Social Network and Starlink and military comms, which you had a show on a little while ago. You want to just touch on that, and everybody can go back again to Michelle's Rumble and subscribe there and go watch the deep dives on these shows. You can hear a little bit of very cool stuff here, I think.
So I'm doing this off the top of my head, obviously, because I don't have all my notes in front of me.
Great.
Um, but Trump had put out some sort of communication about Truth Social, and he said the word, it was the hottest platform or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And when I looked at the word hottest, for some reason I saw it like hot test. And I don't know why, but sometimes this is how my channelings unravel. I get an idea and then I write it down. And then when I go in and ask about it, there is a story behind it. So I wanted to find out, was Trump giving a communication about Truth Social, and was he telling people to do a hot test on it? And they said that Truth Social is not just an app for America. Truth Social is actually a military communications program that is worldwide, and it's analog and digital. And they were saying that it could be used if, for instance, there's a cyber attack on the communication systems, or a solar flare, or there's war or something like that, and everything goes down. It looks like the Truth Social Network, which is not just in America, but it's a whole military setup, could be the thing that fires up and gets us through, if need be, to give out messages of peace. So, not an emergency broadcast system, but it's a peace broadcast system to let you know this is where we are, this is what's happening, keeps everybody calm. And so the hot test part, it looks like that might have been communications for them to maybe do a test on it, to maybe get it ready. I don't know why he would be saying it at that moment, but it was very interesting. And I thought that Truth Social was just like an app that we were all using, to talk about Trump things. But actually, it looks like it's been a cover for this whole network in the background that they've been getting ready, which we've been calling, not me personally, but people have been calling it an emergency broadcast system. And I think it's actually a peace broadcast system, and that the Truth Social is the front of it, like the marketing of it.
Very interesting. Curious about South American countries and other countries which they may not know about all this stuff going on. North America, more or less the Commonwealth countries. Yet they're going to be affected, I believe, for a short period of time. Is there anything which has come up for um, regions such as that, and how it will be communicated of what is going on in this beautiful evolution coming up for the world?
So they haven't told me specifically how it's going to unfold, but they have said that, for instance, things like the 24 election might be delayed because there might be a series of events that might unravel or need to occur, and it might delay the 24 election or postpone it. And I think that the Truth Social Network, this communication system, I think it's supposed to run worldwide. It's not just supposed to be for America. So if the cyber systems went down for the whole world, this Truth Social system would fire up because it's analog and digital, and it would be able to help all regions wherever you are in the world. And that was the big moment for me, because I didn't realize. I thought Truth Social firstly was just an app,
Yeah.
but then through that message he put out, me channeling about the hot test,
Yeah.
I came to realize that it's actually a whole system, a worldwide communication system. It's not just, and the Truth Social logo is just all a marketing front.
It's really amazing, and why I say it's amazing. Especially your channeling and your talents, amazing, beautiful gift. And when you look at what you just shared with us, the incredible amount of meticulous planning that has went into everything. When you look at it from a standpoint like, how do we take care of the world? What is a way to ensure that there's something which would not interrupt communications with every man, woman, and child, which may have a phone nearby them, or a television set, if those are still exist, and I'm sure they do, and laptop, and make sure they feel they're cared for, they don't have to be in fear, and there's things that we can ensure for their safety, and also communicate with them what is going on and what to expect. Just that one out of everything in this plan is remarkable. This isn't
Yeah.
something,
Yeah.
and I've worked for the provincial government of Ontario, Canada, Crown Corporation, being a wildfire fighter, forest fire, jumping out of helicopters in the burning forest. And by the way, it was an awesome job. Awesome. Loved it. And, that was in Ontario, Northern Ontario, and the Yukon. I've obviously worked for the federal governmentary system and not been paid for an entire year, along with 3,500 other military service members, in the 20th century, right, in the 1990s, and know about the bureaucracy at the federal level. I've worked in the corporate world, for over 4 years, and I know about the bureaucracy in the corporate world at a high-tech, exploding tech company, Rim BlackBerry, from going from employee 357, I believe it was, to over 5,000 when I resigned and I started my own companies. And why I bring that up is because I understand bureaucracy. I have seen it at all levels, from an entrepreneurial corporate level in a company, and then corporate America, and working and living and selling on Wall Street, and then the Pentagon when I was there corporate, and then the federal government and the provincial government. And just to think about some of the things you've shared with us on this show, we look what has been out there for comms. It is a monumental effort, which doesn't just happen overnight or in a few years. This has literally been taking place for decades, with, I believe, people putting their lives and families' lives on the line to ensure humanity goes forward, whether it is the quantum financial system and preparing an entire infrastructure of a financial system in the background, and then ensuring the entire world can cut over to it as seamlessly as possible, billions of people, to ensure that there's a communications protocol in place and infrastructure for everybody within, line sight of a radio tower. Just those two things alone, decades of planning. And then on top of that, you would need to have an international conglomerate of benevolent men and women who sign up and say, yes, we're going to do this, and do this as best as we can in the background before it ever is brought open publicly, because of the state we've seen, which are including the Five Eyes. It's incredible.
It is incredible. And
I salute them.
It all stems from that core group of Q. And in the Q team, they've told me that you've got these amazing cybersecurity programmers. So we're talking about McAfee, Snowden, Assange, and that caliber of people are in Q team, just working out this cyber technology and cyber security, because that is the thing that's going to secure it all. So everything we've been talking about, all these layers, the military, the financial, the communications, the decentralized, all of that runs on the new quantum structures, the new computer systems, and it all has to be protected with cybersecurity. And this is my understanding, this is who the Q team are. Not only are they amazing in the sense that they are putting together this cyber system, but also they are spiritual beings. They are high vibration beings who have put their lives in, well, they've had to go into hiding or pretend that they're not here anymore, and give up their lives just so that humanity can go forward in this amazing way. And if you think about it, it's just kind of mind-blowing, really, isn't it? The whole thing, it's mind-blowing. The plan of it all.
It really is. And, I'm just to grasp it all. I'd love to just be able, if for everybody that's still alive today and any family members of those who have passed on the good side, be able to shake their hand and give everybody a hug, even if it takes me 5 years to just stand for what they've done
Yeah,
for our world to go forward. It really is absolutely incredible. It doesn't even begin to scratch the surface. I don't think there's a word which has been created that I'm aware of in this lifetime to explain the incredulity and brilliant and wonderful heroism they
when
all
you were
have.
saying those words about wanting to go and hug everybody, what was happening was your heart was opening. And as you know, when our hearts open, they send out a vibration. So we don't have to physically go round and hug everybody because of time constraints, and obviously we wouldn't be able to physically do that. What we can do is what you've just done. I saw it happen. That as you in that moment expressed that love, that feeling of wanting to thank those people, you've already done it. You've already done an energetic hug, love hug to those people. And they will feel it no matter what, whether they're still alive or they've passed or whatever dimension they're on. Those people feel that heart vibration. So it's just the fact that we're thinking that this plan is amazing, that we're thinking that these people are awesome, that they're getting that virtual hug, really, aren't they, from us? They're getting a virtual heart hug.
Definitely. Definitely. The whistleblowers, the rebels, the black sheep, the unknown soldiers, soul, SOULDIERS, soldiers.
Yes. Yeah.
What they've done.
Yeah.
It's absolutely remarkable. Absolutely remarkable. Everyone.
The whole plan is when you see it, when it started to channel down to me, I was like, whoa, this is like incredible. Because when it first started coming down to me, I was just told it was about satellites, Starlink, and that there was just going to be this great, you were going to have this great tech. I thought, well, this is going to be good. Going to have this great phone. That's how it started, and then they've gradually unraveled it for me. And every time that when I think there can't be anything more, even more awesome, they tell me another thing.
Yeah.
Like who would think that Mohammed bin Salman is responsible for getting the whole of the Middle East into a peace program?
Yeah.
And how dangerous that is. Just think about that culture, that the way that those countries and regions operate. They're very autocratic. They're very set in their religions and the way that they think about things. And they're being asked to give all to just think in a different way for one moment and to embrace this worldwide peace plan, which means from their cultural training that they have to kind of hand things over, which they're not used to doing. Not because they're bad people, but that this is just the way that they are. This is just their style. This is their religion. This is their culture. And this man, bin Salman, has been going around putting himself out there, saying to these cultures, these autocratic people, this is how we need to move forward. Imagine the bravery of standing out at the front and saying those things. these are amazing people.
Yeah.
And sometimes I can't even, it sort of takes my breath away. I'm sitting there with headphones on, channeling it down, and I can hardly get it on the page quick enough. And I'm emotional because of the 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 vastness of it all. Just like you were saying before, it's incredible what people are doing to bring the whole world together,
Mhm.
and they're putting themselves in great dangers a lot of the time.
It's fascinating, truly fascinating.
It
And
is.
and when we look at that, you'd mentioned something prior to us recording, the Arctic versus the Antarctic. Is there anything else in either of those regions you feel that the audience might want to hear about right now?
So I've always been told that the Antarctic is where a lot of the what you would call the deep state programs have been going on. And the Arctic is normally where I my channeled information goes to, because I normally only get given positive information rather than dark.
Yeah.
And so they always show me that the Arctic is the place, like where we have the Salman meeting, where the good things go on. So if people have to go into hiding and they're good people, they would go into the Arctic. So just an example might be if say you believe that someone like say Michael Jackson is still around, he might be protected in a place like the Arctic. Or if you have high level people like say Bin Salman, but not actually Bin Salman, that have gone out of their way to help this process that now need to be in a protected environment, I think that's where they get taken. I think
Yeah.
there's a whole kind of city or something there, uh, military, a military place where all this. I don't know. What do you think, Brad? Do you think that's possible? Have you heard anything like that before?
I haven't heard of it before, but it makes a lot of sense. I've been up in the Canadian Arctic, well, one segment of it. I mean, it's massive and flat.
Yeah. But
And,
I think it would be underneath. I don't think
yeah,
you would probably see it on the top. I
mhm.
think it's going to be probably underground and very well hidden.
Yeah, underground. It could even be under the ocean as well, right? It's
I
so
agree.
wild. It's so
Yeah, it
cool.
is. I
Michelle,
mean,
it's
I've
truly
also
fascinating.
been told, sorry, Brad, I was just about talking about under the ocean
Go on,
before we
let's
finish.
keep going. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
No, that we really do need to finish because it's my bedtime. But just one last thing that just came to mind when you said that is that there are
Sure.
also high-tech transport systems,
Mhm.
like maglev trains and things that can move between continents very fast. And I think that some of those are already in operation. So when we say, for instance, that there might be an underground place in the Arctic, that could be linked to other places in the world up by the undersea networks because of the maglev.
Yeah.
So it could be possible, for instance, that somebody of high profile like President Trump could be moved around the world very fast and easily because they're using like an underground network with these high speed technologies. So
Yeah.
sorry, I just wanted to say that before we
All right. We're
finish.
still we're still stuck in the 80-year-old, airplane aircraft system, where they're charging carbon tax credits for your seat. Very soon. Not to be happening because we have the free energy about to be unveiled once all this goes down, to come back to that return to sovereignty and God. And it's absolutely exciting to hang out here. And I'm not going to say hold on to your hats. I'm not going to say buckle up. I also don't believe in a 4-year pause, which has been, set out there. But if people you do, you're watching, that's great, no problem. And I believe there's just a few more things to shake out. But very shortly, it is to
Well, I hope
infinity,
so.
if you will.
Yeah, yeah.
Amazing, amazing. way that our souls know it. Our souls know this is coming, and hang in there, regardless of what's been happening on a day-to-day basis, right? And definitely stay away from a television, stay away from anything. And that if you're in the London Tube, the Underground, you're in airports, whatever, even though those might be on or you're hearing it, just tune out, tune into something else that's positive, right? And keep that higher vibration as you're walking around, especially if you're in supermarkets like Michelle, and you got all these people and all this cacophony, just stay in your own vibe. You got this, and we'll all be here for you. So thank you very much. And final question to you, Michelle. What would you just like to share with the world? What just comes from your heart to share with people right now as we sign off?
Oh, that's a difficult one. I think that there's quite a lot of stress on people with the way that the energies are right now. I think we were talking before we came on about how tired we've both been for the last sort of 2 days. And I think people are struggling on lots of layers with the energies. And so I think we have to try and be a bit more compassionate to ourselves, give ourselves more time, maybe more rest, and maybe not push ourselves to do as many things as we're used to doing. Because I think at the moment, our place is to be as relaxed and calm as we can be so that we can help the others who don't understand what's going on. And I think it's okay if you're having a day where, you're not getting as much done as you used to, because we're changing, as you've talked about many times, we're changing in our cellular makeup. And so that takes a lot of energy from us. We are energetic beings, we're changing. And I think we just have to just have compassion for how we are coping with each step of this, because some days can just feel very heavy.
Yep. Yep. Our vessel. Take care of the vessel.
Yeah.
Take care of the
Yeah.
vessel. Exactly.
You're the best.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much, Michelle. It's a deep honor. And thank you to all this amazing audience of the Sovereign Soul Show. I'm sure you have an amazing locals audience. So hello to all of you. Of course, they're amazing because they're coming in for truth, right? You are a light for truth. So I appreciate your gifts as well. And all of you in the white hat background as well as in the foreground. Thank you all for your incredible service. Truly, it's absolutely lovely. Love you all, literally from my heart out there to everybody. Make sure you please follow, hit the like button wherever you're seeing this. Drop a comment if you enjoyed the show. This really helps get it out there for the mass censorship. Even on the platform you're watching this on right now, that sounds like Bumble. This platform is censoring us, literally. So every comment, oh yeah, yep. We can talk offline, but we've had a lot of, literally on video, you can watch the numbers go up and then change, and then the thumbs go up and they drop back down. And several of us have talked about this, especially the last 2 months.
It never grows.
The thumbs help big time, the follows as well as the comments to get this up in the algorithm in this final few steps of this war, if you will. Godwin.
Thanks for having me, Brad.
So honored to have you on. Look forward to having you back, Michelle. Thanks for having yourself a wonderful bedtime, bed rest. And ladies and gentlemen, all the best to you. We appreciate you, love you. Thanks for being here. You're all amazing, awakened souls.